I never thought I'd look at my own home and feel like a stranger in it. That the person I loved could turn into someone I barely recognized. My name is Ryan Mitchell. I'm 47, construction superintendent. My body has carried concrete for over 25 years, and my knees carry every ounce of it. Every step, every slab, every board I've ever laid. My legs scream at me most nights, pain creeping into the quiet, stealing sleep. Sarah, my wife, she was always looking for ways to help. I trusted her, I really did. She came across this cream online. It's all natural, she said with a smile. CBD, arnica, emu oil. It'll help your knees, help you sleep, help you get back to feeling like yourself. I wanted to believe her. I wanted relief, so I let her rub it into my knees every night before bed, watching her fingers glide over the scars and calluses that told the story of my life. At first, it felt soothing, like a warm hug in the dark. She was sweet, gentle, tender, the way only someone who loves you can be. But love, I would learn, can twist into something unrecognizable. 3 months later, things started slipping. Small things at first. Dropping tools, forgetting safety briefings, misjudging measurements. My crew laughed it off, but my boss didn't. One morning, I tripped over rebar I had just laid. My lunch slid across the concrete floor, ketchup staining my blue shirt, and I stared at it, confused, angry at myself. Ryan, man, what's going on? My boss asked later, pulling me aside, voice low, concern in his eyes. You're scaring me. Labs, doctors, more labs. Rheumatologists asking questions I didn't understand. Cognitive erosion, they called it. Slow, creeping, subtle at first. But I felt it, the fog, the lapse. The moments when I couldn't remember what I just did or why I walked into a room. And then he asked the question I couldn't dodge. Ryan, who applies the joint cream every night? I froze. My heart skipped. I wanted to say it was Sarah, that I trusted her, that she only wanted to help. But something inside me hesitated. I couldn't put it into words. The creeping fear that maybe the comfort I felt from her touch was a lie. That night, I told her I'd skip it. Her smile faltered, just a flicker. Then, the voice I knew, soft, patient, almost innocent. You'll be in pain all night. Let me just put a little on. I pretended to sleep, my chest tight, every nerve alert. She waited, and then she went to the garage. The faint creak of the floorboards under her weight. The freezer door opened. The soft, deliberate clink of plastic tubs sliding out. I could hear the low hum of the freezer. Smell the faint chemical tang that shouldn't have been there. She pulled out a Tupperware full of pre-mixed cream tubs, all labeled neatly. Took photos of them with her phone, whispering to herself like some secret victory chant. 2 more months, and he won't be able to work. Disability. Full check. We'll be set. The words sank into my chest like a weight, cold and heavy. I stared at the ceiling, pretending to sleep, every instinct screaming at me. The person I had trusted, loved, depended on, wanted me broken, helpless, a permanent fixture in this house while she spent the money I earned. And all this time I thought she cared. I thought she wanted to help. 3 years probation, mandatory psych treatment. That was the outcome when it finally came to light. When justice, however small, was done. But it wasn't about the court. It wasn't about the legal system. I threw out every tub of cream. Every one of them. I burned the memory of them, one by one. My knees still hurt. The ache hasn't gone away. But my mind is clear. My clarity is my victory. I replay it often in my head, the moment I realized the truth. The way her hands lingered over me at night, pretending care, while plotting ruin. The way she whispered about checks and disability like a villain. In some cheap movie, only this was real. And it almost broke me. And yet, here I am, standing, walking, breathing. The pain is mine, yes, but the mind is mine too. That matters more than anything. I know what it's like to trust someone completely and have that trust weaponized against you. I know what it's like to feel every step you take might be your last strong one. To feel your body betray you while someone smiles at the idea. I want you to feel that, feel the tension, the fear, the anger, because that's what makes revenge so cathartic when it finally comes. And it does. It will. Because when someone thinks they can play with your life, your body, your mind, there's a moment when enough is enough. A moment when patience turns into strategy, when observation turns into planning, when fear turns into resolve. And that's where the story truly begins. Not in the betrayal, not in the pain, but in the realization that you can fight back. So let me take you there, into the life of a man who almost lost everything to someone he loved. Let me show you how careful observation, patience, and a clear mind can turn betrayal into justice. This is the story of Sarah, the cream, and me, Ryan Mitchell, and how I refused to be a victim in my own life. The mornings became unbearable. I could feel the fog before my eyes even opened, like my mind was wrapped in cotton, every thought muffled, every movement heavier than it should be. Sarah, she was still smiling, still rubbing that cream into my knees with hands that looked tender, caring, loving, but I had learned to see beyond the surface, to notice the tiny flickers of something darker, something calculating behind those eyes. I started paying attention to the little things, the patterns that made my stomach twist into knots, how she insisted on applying it every single night, even when I begged her to stop, how she whispered about relief in the most unnatural way, a kind of insistence that made it feel like her satisfaction depended on my pain, how she watched me, not with love, but with something else entirely, something predatory. It started to become clear that she didn't just want me to be in pain, she wanted me incapacitated, not just for a few days, not just a temporary inconvenience. She wanted the kind of injury that would make me dependent, helpless, someone she could control while she lived her life the way she wanted. And the money, the disability check she whispered about in that garage froze me in place like ice. I began noticing things at work too, tools slipping from my hands, trips I didn't remember taking, instructions I couldn't recall giving. My crew noticed it too, the subtle stumbles and missteps, the fog that seemed to settle over me in the middle of the day. My boss's concern was no longer casual. Ryan, something's wrong. You need to see a specialist. Maybe take some time off, he said, voice low but urgent. I couldn't take time off. Not yet. Not when I had started noticing the patterns. The way she had carefully orchestrated every detail. How she had manipulated every small thing to isolate me, to weaken me, to make me vulnerable. Every sleepless night, every accident, every small lapse was a calculated move. And that realization brought something strange with it. Anger. Yes, but also clarity. I started documenting everything. Every cream application, every stumble, every word she said that didn't sit right. Photos of the tubs in the freezer. Screenshots of her murmured comments when she thought I was asleep. Notes scribbled in a notebook hidden under my mattress. I didn't just want proof. I wanted understanding, the full scope of what she had done, how she had plotted my slow destruction. It became almost a game, though a dark one. Observing her without her noticing, noting the timing of her actions, her little tells when she thought I was oblivious, the way she would check her phone in the middle of the night, pretending to read a message, but really taking pictures of the tubs, whispering to herself about my future disability. I imagined her mind, like a spider web, every thread carefully placed, every plan interconnected. And then came the conversations, casual mentions, almost throwaways, that made my skin crawl. Imagine how nice it will be when he can't work, she said one night. Voice soft, almost dreamy. We'll have all the time we need. No interruptions. Full check. Everything we ever wanted. She thought I was asleep, but I was wide awake, every word embedding itself in my memory like a scar. I felt my rage simmering, but I didn't act immediately. I needed patience. I had to let the truth reveal itself fully. Had to understand exactly how far she would go, exactly what her endgame was. The slow cognitive erosion, the accidents, the careful nudging toward disability, it all painted a picture that was terrifying in its precision. And I realized I had a choice: continue being a pawn in her game, or fight back with the patience and strategy she hadn't expected me to have. I started small, shifting things subtly, tools left just slightly out of reach when she was around, so I could watch her reactions, observing her when she thought I was asleep, noting her routines. Everything she did to manipulate me, I mirrored, studied, anticipated. I became quiet, patient, calculating. The man who had been fooled, who had been weakened, who had almost lost everything, was still there, but he was learning, adapting, and preparing. At work, I began to rebuild control over the accidents, double-checking my movements, keeping tools close, memorizing every step. I had to appear weak, slow, forgetful, just as she expected, but inside, I was sharpening myself. Every misstep she caused, every suggestion she made, every time she whispered about my disability, I cataloged. Each detail was a puzzle piece in a plan she could never foresee. Then came the first real break. The moment that made me realize she underestimated me completely. She left a small tub out, one of the pre-mixed creams, on the counter, where she assumed I wouldn't notice. But I did. And instead of reacting, I observed. I noted the label, the batch number, the faint chemical smell. I touched it, felt its texture, examined it. And for the first time, I felt the power shift slightly. She thought I was oblivious. I was not. The nights became my laboratory, watching, listening, recording her actions, while keeping my own pain and awareness hidden. Every touch she gave, every helpful application of cream, every whispered thought about my future disability, I turned into data, knowledge, the weapon I hadn't had before. And yet, there was fear, the kind that wraps around your chest and doesn't let go. What if I made a wrong move? What if she noticed my subtle observations? What if she accelerated her plans, realizing I had begun to suspect her? I had to be careful, almost invisible in my counterplay. The rage and clarity had to be tempered with patience. One wrong step, and it could all unravel. It was in this slow tension, this delicate balance of observation and feigned weakness, that the real plan began to take shape. I wasn't acting yet, not fully, but I was laying the groundwork. Like a master builder at a construction site, every detail had to be perfect, every step calculated, every risk measured. I started imagining the end game, her caught, exposed, forced to face the truth. The psychological satisfaction of seeing her carefully laid plans collapse. The moral justice of her getting what she deserved. And I realized the revenge didn't have to be dramatic. It didn't have to hurt her physically. The satisfaction would come from the collapse of her control, the exposure of her manipulation, the clarity I had regained versus the chaos she had sown. Every night, the cream tubs lay in their places, evidence of her deception. Every morning, I played the part she wanted, the obedient, foggy, weak husband. But behind the mask, I was alive, aware, planning. Every whispered comment she made, every small move, every subtle manipulation, it was all fuel for what was coming. And it was coming. Slowly, patiently, carefully. The breaking point didn't come with shouting or slammed doors. It came quietly on a Tuesday afternoon under fluorescent lights, with a clipboard in my boss's hands and a look I'd never seen on his face before. Not anger, not disappointment, fear. He sat me down in the site trailer, shut the door, and spoke slowly like he was afraid I might forget the words as he said them. He told me insurance was asking questions. Too many incident reports. Too many near misses. He said the company couldn't risk a serious accident. He said if I didn't take medical leave voluntarily, they'd have to force it. Medical leave. That was the word she had been circling for months without ever saying it out loud. I nodded. I played the part. I looked confused, tired, broken. Inside, something hardened. Not rage. Resolve. Because now I understood the timeline. She wasn't rushing. She didn't need to. She was letting the system do the work for her. Employers get nervous. Doctors document declines. Paper trails form themselves. Disability doesn't look like a crime when it's slow and medical and tragic. It looks like bad luck. That night at home, she was almost glowing. "You look exhausted," she said, already reaching for the cream. "You should really rest. Your body's telling you something." I let her apply it that night. One last time. I needed her confident, comfortable. I needed her to believe the plan was working. Then I changed everything. The next morning, I showered longer than usual. I scrubbed my knees until they burned. I threw the towel straight into the washer on hot. I bagged my clothes separately. I stopped all skin contact with that cream without telling her. I made excuses. I said the doctor wanted a break. I said my skin was irritated. I said I'd apply it myself later. She didn't like that. Her concern sharpened. Her sweetness thinned. "You sure?" She asked too often. "You've been worse without it before." I shrugged. I smiled. I stayed calm. That's when she made her first mistake. She pushed. She started hovering, watching, asking more questions than usual, bringing up disability paperwork casually, mentioning how easy the process was once you were approved, dropping numbers into conversation like they were harmless facts. I recorded everything. Audio, dates, times. And then I went back to the rheumatologist. I told him everything. Not emotionally, not dramatically, calm, clinical, cream composition, application routine, behavioral changes, timelines. I showed him the photos. the recordings, the freezer tubs. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and exhaled, slowly like a man who had just realized how close someone came to being erased quietly. This isn't just abuse, he said. This is deliberate poisoning. That word landed heavier than any accusation I could have imagined. Poisoning. He contacted toxicology. They confirmed it. DMSO used as a carrier. Benzodiazepine derivatives in low sustained doses. Designed to absorb slowly. Designed not to kill. Designed to dull. Designed to disable. From there, everything moved faster than she expected. Doctors reported. Investigators listened. My work records suddenly mattered. My notes mattered. The recordings mattered. Her whispered garage confession mattered more than anything. And the entire time, I didn't confront her. That was the hardest part. Sitting across from her at dinner while knowing exactly what she'd done. Watching her talk about our future while knowing she planned one where I wasn't fully myself. Letting her think she was winning. Because real revenge isn't loud. It's precise. The day they came to the house, she thought it was about insurance. She even offered them coffee. She laughed. She touched my shoulder like a devoted wife. They asked to see the freezer. Her face changed so fast, it almost felt unreal. Like watching a mask crack. She tried to talk, to explain, to minimize, to reframe. I didn't say a word. I just watched. Watched as the tubs were photographed. Watched as her phone was taken. Watched as the confidence drained out of her posture inch by inch. She looked at me then. Really looked. And for the first time since this started, she saw clarity in my eyes. Not fog. Not confusion. Awareness. That was the moment she understood the game was over. She cried later. She begged. She said she never meant to hurt me. She said she was just scared of money. Of being alone. Of the future. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I told her one thing. You were willing to take my mind so you could feel secure. That's not fear. That's entitlement. She took a plea. 3 years probation. Mandatory psychiatric treatment. No jail. The system rarely punishes quiet crimes the way it should. But here's the thing. She didn't get the check. She didn't get the future she planned. She didn't get control. And I got my mind back. The fog lifted slowly over weeks. Then months. Thoughts sharpened. Balance returned. Words stopped slipping away. My boss cleared me to return with restrictions. My crew welcomed me like I'd come back from the dead. In a way, I had. I threw out every tub of cream myself. One by one. No ceremony. No anger. Just disposal. My knees still hurt. They probably always will. But every step I take now is mine. Every thought is mine. Every decision is clear. And when people ask why I'm quieter now, more observant, less trusting, I don't explain. Some lessons don't need words. They live in the space where betrayal used to sit. After she was gone, the house felt different. Not emptier. Quieter in a way that felt earned. Like the air itself had stopped holding its breath. I didn't realize how much. Tension lived in the walls until it wasn't there anymore. No more freezer humming with secrets. No more careful pretending at dinner. No more wondering if the person beside me was watching me fade on purpose. People think revenge is explosive. Shouting matches. Courtroom drama. Slammed fists and tears. But the most satisfying kind is slow and silent. It's waking up one morning and realizing you're safe. That the threat isn't looming anymore. That your body is hurting, but your mind is yours. The probation terms kept her away. No contact. Mandatory treatment. Financial oversight. The life she imagined. Spending freely suddenly came with check-ins and restrictions and a paper trail she couldn't manipulate. Every plan she made collapsed under the weight of exposure. Word spread quietly. Not gossip. Just truth. Doctors talk. Employers document. Family notices patterns once someone points them out. The devoted wife narrative didn't survive daylight. I went back to work part-time. Slower pace. Different responsibilities. But something else changed too. The way people looked at me. Not with pity. With respect. Like someone who had walked through fire and come back steady. Some nights my knees still wake me up. Pain doesn't vanish just because justice shows up. But when I lie there now, staring at the ceiling, I don't feel fear. I feel presence. I feel grounded in my own thoughts. That's a kind of wealth no check can replace. I thought I'd feel anger forever. That it would sit in my chest and rot there. But it didn't. It burned hot at first, then burned clean. What remained was clarity. And clarity is powerful. She tried a message once through a third party. Apologies. Explanations. Excuses dressed as insight. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. Out of closure. Some conversations only reopen wounds that have already healed enough to let you walk again. I learned something through all of this. Not just about betrayal, but about patience. About watching instead of reacting. About letting people reveal themselves fully before you move. She thought I was fading. She never considered I was observing. That was the revenge. Not ruining her life. She did that herself. Not screaming my pain. I documented it. Not fighting back with force. I used truth. And the truth did what it always does when given time and space. It stood up on its own. If you're listening to this and something feels familiar, if there's a quiet discomfort in your chest, a sense that something isn't right, but you can't explain it yet, don't ignore that feeling. Awareness is the first step back to yourself. You don't need to be loud to be strong. You don't need to rush to be victorious. Sometimes the smartest move is waiting long enough for the trap to spring on the person who said it. My knees still hurt, but my head is clear, and that matters more than anything. If this story hit you, if it made you pause or think or recognize something in your own life, let me know in the comments. Stories like this matter because they remind us that justice isn't always dramatic, but it is possible. Like the video if you felt that satisfaction in your chest. Subscribe if you want more real stories where patience beats cruelty and clarity wins in the end. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't what you take from someone. It's what you refuse to lose.